Yeah, great.
Is your chair there?
Here? Okay.
You.
Hey, guys.
Ryan, Ben. Ladies and gentlemen from Cambridge, Mass, Matthew, Page, Damon.
Even the middle name.
That's
Thank
right.
you.
How are you?
My mother thanks you.
Yeah, no problem. There you go.
Yeah, there was an agent a long time ago who told me to be Matt Damon, and I still wish to this day that I'd gone with Matthew because I love the name Matthew.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Matt sounds like somebody clearing their throat, so I'm forever, you know.
And if you change it, it's weird, right? Because Larry Fishburne went to Lawrence Fishburne. If they're like, oh,
yeah,
Matt wants
Sam
to grow
Jackson
up.
did it, you know, pretty late on. You know,
Yeah.
he was. Everyone knew him as Sam Jackson, and then he was Samuel L. Jackson. But now everyone calls him Samuel Jackson. Nobody remembers. So
True. It's amazing how weird the business can actually be.
yeah, for a number of reasons,
Yeah,
not just Sam
sure.
Jackson.
We'll come back to that. You were on a show a year ago, and it was in advance of the Sahara movie. You were
Yeah.
getting ready to do it.
Yeah.
And you were excited. A lot of people didn't think you'd actually be able to pull this off.
Well, we were laughing about it. It was the other producers and I were talking last night about how naive we were to come to Toronto and say, you know what, we know these three guys, they're going to run across the Sahara Desert, and then we're going to shoot it, and we're going to come back here, we're going to show it to you know. The fact that it actually came to pass was pretty incredible.
Was it hard? Like, tell me about the challenges.
Well, just the logistical challenges of getting these guys across six different countries. First of all, they had to run every day. They ran for about 40 miles a day for 111 straight days. They never took a day off. But then the whole act of shooting a movie around, documenting this trip, was really, you know, fraught with, you know, everything from, you know, the weather and obviously, you know, keeping the runners healthy to, you know, the arguments that were, you know, it's like these guys are all living in tents together out in the desert, and to the political climate of each country that they're running through, and the visas and the permissions, and you know, the drama around getting even into certain countries. It was really challenging.
Aside from just the sheer human accomplishment of running across it, the purpose in H2O and the water and the wells and all that, that's got to be, yes. I assume when it gets difficult, you sit there and go, we're here for a reason. Oh,
yeah. I mean, since last year when we announced H2O Africa at 1 by 1, we've raised over $2 million. We've got 59 well projects that are either complete or in the works right now. Right now. I mean, it's just incredible how quickly it's happened. And the runners identified on their run a lot of these places, a lot of these organizations that we could interface with, that we could put the money through. So we know where the money's going. We know exactly where it's going and to whom it's going and to which projects. And so there's transparency and accountability and all those things you look for in a place you want to donate. But also we know that it's actually working, and we can see these things starting to work. And
you're taking Ben for his first time.
Yeah.
Aside from bringing a guy who could probably, he's doing work now, but who could lend a lot of, you know, more profile to it, you're taking your friend there. How do you prepare your friend for that?
I've talked to him a lot about my other trip, and but it's something that you just have to see. I mean, I'd spoken to friends of mine who had gone before I went, and it's just something that you know, it's a different experience when you're there. I mean, when you, for instance, something like the Global Fund, which you know, this year, Canada, unfortunately, and surprisingly, actually, Canada is not living up to the promise that they made at Glen Eagles in '05. Bob Geldof said this year, he had a quote which was that Harper went to the G8, but he left Canada behind. Because it was a problem that it was a promise that Canadians made, pre Harper. So he's not honoring that, so that's surprising because Canadians, you know, have such a great reputation and such a, you know, they're great people, and they should be. They shouldn't be going back on their word.
It speaks to the, I mean, there's so much political change. It seems like, you know, there's always been left and right and different ways to approach politics. It seems these days it is even more polarized than it used to be, and if you side for one side, it's harder for people to dabble, and it just becomes so much more complicated for these kinds of issues.
Maybe. I mean, it might be, the climate might be divisive, but the great thing about this issue is that there's really only one side to the argument, and it's a totally nonpartisan issue. George Bush, you know, with PEPFAR, the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, George Bush has done more for Africa than any president ever. So, you know, as politically, I'm a liberal, and so I differ with him on just about everything. But, Yeah, I take my hat off to him when it comes to that. I talked to one guy. He said I was a skeleton. He showed me a picture of himself. Yeah. He was skeletal. He was absolutely. He looked dead.
Yeah.
And he was sitting there talking to me, and he just, you know, looked like he could kick my ass. You know.
You probably could, right?
He probably could. And he said, look, he said I was a dead man. He goes, and now I'm a father again. Yeah. He had lost his wife to AIDS. He remarried. He remarried another woman who was HIV positive. And he was working, and he was, you know, contributing to the economy. He was, you know, the difference if these people get these life-saving drugs, the difference is, you know, one sick person brings down a whole household. It's all the energy of the house is going to, you know, to help that person. When that person comes back, it's that, you know,
the whole family.
The whole family. There's a ripple effect.
What does this provide? What has this brought to your life? I interviewed a Hall of Fame basketball player once, and he had said to me that he was one of the best basketball players ever. He said, and at the end of my life, if all they could say to me was that I was one of the greatest basketball players, he said, then I did a really shitty job. If that's all I was a great basketball player. So I wondered, I'm assuming for yourself as well, there's got to be some element to, you just don't want to be a guy who had a big movie.
Yeah, no, definitely. But I'm less worried about what people think about me, and more worried about whether or not these problems are. See, these things are, to me, the frustrating thing about going there and seeing all these things is that there are really practical solutions that are, you know, as Bono says, it's tough to, you know, it's tough to argue for, you know, or it's tough to be angry at somebody who built your school. Yeah. You know, so if we get over there and we engage and we engage with the problem and we intervene aggressively, that's a beautiful kind of face of foreign policy for all of us. You know that I think will reap incredible rewards in 25 years. And we'll be looking at a very different continent in 25 years.
Absolutely. Good to see you, man.
All right, George. Thanks
Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Take care. Matthew.